Yes, I am using my bachelor title for this video material. Let's do this. Natlan's Archon quest has finally reached its end. Yes, I'll make a video of it soon. And the thing that was criticized the most are two things, that being Natlan's character design and its controversial mixing cultures. This is not getting any better the moment First the strip marketing is out and making the internet angry about this design. I mean, she looks kind of too fan servicey, she doesn't look like a Genshin character, you know the gist. I would like to talk about her design, but since she is not really fully released yet, I cannot really talk about her design unless I know her backstory first, so you'll have to wait until her official release is out. I will also talk about Natlan as a concept and its characters once Collective of Plenty is released, but today, I want to talk about Mavuika's design and why she is one of the most controversial characters in Genshin Impact design-wise. I'm sure a lot of you already watched videos talking about this and I'm late for the party, but hey, I can use my title now for something meaningful this time despite being a useless title. Mavuika is weird because she's instantly become the most loved character when she was released because of her unique motorbike mommy design, Himeko-esque XP even though some people think of her as Shakespeare XP instead, and how human she is as an Archon, that being very approachable, but it just went downhill from there because she received an overwhelming amount of comments by the community as Mary Sue. Why she is a Mary Sue, what is a Mary Sue, and why do people portray it that way? I'm going to split this video into two parts because, boy, there's just a lot of things to talk about. In today's video, we'll be exploring Mavuika's lore and role in the Archon quest, try to explore her concept as a character, explain to you about the Mary Sue allegations, why she is designed that way, and how to make her better. The second video will include my drawing skills where we'll discuss her visual design. Now, knowing that I'm talking about the Mavuika, here's something you have to remember. Yes, this is a disclaimer, and the internet can be a scary place sometimes, especially if I say something negative or positive about their favorite or least favorite husband or waifu. Trust me, I got death threats before over something like this, okay? I don't want to talk about it. You guys are f***ing insane sometimes. As you all know, I am a Bachelor of Design. I have been designing characters for some time now, so I have a pretty good grip on how to design a character. I also like Mavuika. I think her design is really cool, but since I am here talking as a professional artist, this is where I also have to be objective with my opinion despite my own taste. But please know, just because I am an artist and a bachelor doesn't mean my opinion is obsolete, because even artists have different tastes. But in art school, we are trained to appreciate art as much as possible so we can be quote-unquote objective with our opinions. Just because I like A and I am more superior in that field doesn't mean you liking B is a bad thing, and so is the other way around. I like Mavuika, you may also like Mavuika, and that's fine. While I am no longer bothered by extremely hateful comments anymore, I just want to tell you guys, be nice. Be sure if you have an opinion or argument in the comment section, be respectful towards each other, and take everything I said here with a grain of salt. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko Gitsune and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. Okay, where do we begin? I'll be doing this analysis with my Emily style video by first explaining to you Mavuika's lore in the character story and her role in the Archon quest. It won't take much for me to explain because her role and lore has a very consistent theme, so be sure to pay attention while I explain them to you all. I won't be including my opinion here just yet, so you can judge her by yourself. I also rearranged these character stories into something more chronologically correct. Mavuika was born in a small family of the Scions of the Canopy. Her mother is a passionate but reckless adventurer while her father is a knowledgeable but taciturn, causing them to constantly fight once they get married. But Mavuika's birth changed this as her actions indirectly changed them. Her father learned the joy of talking to people when Mavuika's curiosity showed happiness to her father's words, while her mother realized how reckless she is when she brings Mavuika into adventures, and Mavuika recklessly put herself in danger in many times. Mavuika became the bridge to create a happier family, and this becomes better the moment Hine was born as she becomes an older sister role to her. However, she didn't realize the truth of war the moment her father returned from the Night Border Wars. While she is happy that the team is victorious and able to be rekindled by the Ode of Resurrection, she also realizes that the injuries from the war will remain in their bodies. This is the first time the gaze of death was fixed on her. She simply lay her head low while holding back tears. Her father told her that this is the truth of war, that all fear death, but there will be someone to step forward to fight because they have something they wish to protect. Knowing the truth of war, Mavuika says to her parents that, since we are forced to fight in this war, then I wish to end it. Thus, she was granted a vision, and over time, she gradually became the Pyro Archon. Mavuika is someone that is very well respected by her people, and despite being their Archon, she has a very easygoing personality that she is able to mingle with her people. She is able to create many friends among other tribes, her will to win in drinking contests is always strong, and even people who want to cause trouble to her end up not doing it before the plan is in motion because of her icy stare, reminding them who is their leader. Even so, she never really considers herself as God or Archon, because to her, that's just a status, authority, and a spiritual symbol. She is also a perfectionist and everything must be done both perfectly and beautifully. If anyone is there to refute her ideology, she always has a set of arguments at the ready. She has a lot of hobbies and apparently, she can master everything she puts her interest in just 1 year, significantly faster than masters that dedicated their whole lives in their respective fields for years. One of her hobbies is also puzzles and apparently she can solve them so easily that she has to make them harder by herself by flipping the puzzle or putting more restrictions on her. This makes her show her catalogs of puzzle gameplays to other puzzle enthusiasts and merchants, but understandably this leads to dispute because it only shows her taste in puzzle but not everyone else's. As for her Flame Strider, the motorbike, it was created along with Shilonen with blueprints from ancient dragon technology and the source mechanism. Shilonen even finds Mavuika crazy with the ridiculous amount of requests to make a vehicle that can fly, sail, and climb the hills. Even so, Shilonen still fulfilled her friend's request and created the monstrosity that we now see in her gameplay. Now, the other two character story I have not mentioned yet is her character story 4 and 5, but since this is connected deeply in the Archon quest, I'll skip it and move on to her role instead. So, we first meet Mavuika in the Stadium of the Sacred Flame, and just looking at her presence, it is evident that she is a respectable and loved Archon as we all expect her to be. We even see her battle against Capitano, the first rank of the Fatui Harbingers, whose rank is known to rival the powers of gods, and how strong she is despite only being a human. She was there to help rescue Kachina from the Night Kingdom when the Oath failed, and even sacrificed all of the mementos left by the previous heroes over the past 500 years to save the Traveler and the gang from the Night Kingdom. She then reveals her plan to save Natlan is to awaken the 6 heroes in order to trigger her to borrow the power of the Divine Throne, and we learn this power is Nova's power, one of the 4 shining shades and the ruler of death. We see her actively involved in her plan and how involved she is in the Archon quest. She revealed the reason she is not aligned with Capitano despite his other solution is because she loves Natlan. And if Natlan's ley lines are reweaved or reconstructed by the Gnosis or the Secret Source mechanism, it will cause another problem that the memories of the heroes will be lost and people of Natlan will forget their previous lives. The moment her plan is in motion, she defeats Kosoithot with an overwhelming shift of power and even breaks the damn sky, proving the fake sky theory is correct. After a huge war, Natlan defeated the Abyss with the help of their Archon Mavuika, and in order to eradicate the Abyss for good in Natlan, she is going to the depths of the Night Kingdom alone, but of course not really because she wants the Traveler to join her. Even in the final battle, despite being verbally harassed and insulted by Kosoithot in the form of the previous Archons, Mavuika remains undeterred and moves forward like a queen she is. Yes, queen. Anyways. After the Traveler and Mavuika defeat Kosoithot, it is time for her to sacrifice her life to Renova as payment using her power, and to conclude the deal Xabalanque made with Renova. Just like what her story quest describe her, when Sitlali, Yohual, Techutin, and the Traveler tells her she doesn't have to bear this problem alone, she has her arguments at the ready and tells everyone that a leader must make a good choice for the greater good. She even adds that what she wants is not important, but as we all know, Capitano Capitano comes to the rescue and sacrifices himself instead of Mavuika. So Mavuika lives another day, but the aftermath of what we see in Capitano's sacrifice is what we see in Liyue's newest lantern ride and will spread all across the event eventually, and we see this with the Mikawa Flower Festival as well. I already did a video what the aftermath did to Inazuma, so be sure to check that video out. Okay, not part of the script. In her story quest, the whole point of that quest is the rebranding of the pilgrimage, the world of the Pyro Archons, and Xabalanque. Please just ignore the stupid bug, okay? Xabalanque is portrayed as someone who defeats the Power Sovereign Xiuquadol and is known to be very powerful. But even so, Mavuika is not afraid of him and is very relaxed about it. The quest also tells us how Mavuika is very chill with her people, unable to mingle with them, have hobbies and interests, and have a healthy appetite. The moment we see the Xabalanque himself, he actually has a very laid-back personality and actually has a good sense of humor. At the end, we see her and Xabalanque spar. The Traveler and Paimon are the witness of this, and when the Traveler asks Mavuika if she is afraid, she said no, and even added, in war, there's no room for doubts, resulting in her winning with the spar. Now, I know I have to reserve my opinion after I'm done with retelling her lore and role, but this one just bothers me because when I played this story quest, how the fuck does the story refer to Mavuika as the winner when they are clearly evenly matched? Like, how? They don't explain it. Like, if Mavuika is the winner, is the flame that the Travel hold is Xabalanque's? But why is Mavuika the one giving it? Or is it just the time limit? If it is, then how do they determine the winner? Is it because Xabalanque said so? Because if that's the case, he's way too humble for someone portrayed as the slayer of the Pyro Sovereign. Also, I didn't mention this because this video is not about Mavuika's story quest recap. We'll do it in another video, don't worry. But Kinich won the pilgrimage rebranding, and as we know, the people of Natlan will party with the winner to celebrate their victory, which they did. But then, Mavuika came to the and boasts her victory against Xabalanque in Kinich's victory party. I'm lost for words. Overall, this story quest is still enjoyable, but I'll make a video about it later. Now let me talk about my opinions. In design, it is important to actually know the character you are trying to make. That's why in design, we are taught how to write as well. Of course, it's not as good as people in the literature major, but we learn the basics of it and few things that are fundamental to make a good character. And there are 3 things to make them good: the background, the ups, and the flaws. And these are very self-explanatory, so I don't have to explain them one by one. I do have to say the reason, however, and that is so we can feel more connected with the character. As a customer, of course we expect the best quality of items that are being sold by the seller. And in a character, the best way to actually make people love them is to give them a balanced amount of ups and downs to make the players able to resonate with the character and feel relatable. Unfortunately with Mavuika, she comes down as an enigma, and the fact that she is the human Archon, it's ironic because she doesn't feel human because she is too damn perfect. Now, I have to explain to you all why Mavuika was so beloved by the community the first time she is introduced, and that's because she introduces something that Genshin never did before, an Archon that acts like a human. She is the most human when we first saw her. Yes, she is strong, but for someone who is the god of war, we do expect her to be strong. But what balances it out is that even though she is an Archon, she acts like a human. She is able to communicate with her people, she mingles with her people, she shows human emotions like laughter, she doesn't refer to herself as a god but a leader instead, and is able to joke around with her people. But that's where it stops because she lacks one thing that is important in a human psyche, and what makes character a good character, and that is the moment of vulnerability. In my last video about Mizuki's story quest, I mentioned the importance of balancing emotions because that's what makes human have a healthy psyche. While in Mavuika, she is balanced with the amount of internal pressure she is having. What makes her so unrelatable as the Archon quest progresses is how we never see her actually shows the side of pressure and the moment of vulnerability. She remains calm, she remains focused, she remains perfect, and she always proves everyone wrong when they disagree with her, like with Moalani, Capitano, Sitlali, and Yohualte Zuhtin. There are a few times that we do see her vulnerable, that being in the fiction story and her animated shorts, which even then, it's not enough, at least for me, because while I get she is supposed to be an experienced warrior, they kinda overstep that boundary because arguably, Mavuika is the youngest Archon, especially with the fact that Nahida is supposed to be the youngest one. I swear to god, I forgot that this is even a thing in Genshin's lore, and I only remember Nahida is the youngest when I was writing the script. So if you combine her shorter experience as the Archon or leader, they kinda made it over the top with how perfect she is, like how she is able to master something she is interested in just 1 year, and to boot, in the middle of a war. I get that mastering the skill of improvement thing that she mentions in her character story, but that would have been fine if the setting isn't a different matter. Like if Mavuika is the Archon in Fontaine or in Sumeru, then this trope would have made a lot more sense since people of Fontaine do love perfection in art. That's why Furina has to keep the diva appearance and perfection facade to save her people. People in Sumeru do expect their Archon to be all-knowing. That's why Nahida was imprisoned because she didn't meet the expectation when she was born. It is expected that Mavuika is supposed to be the foundation and the leader of her people. In the moment of war, pressure will always be there, and we don't see that in Mavuika. Even in the 4th act, Mavuika remains unfettered. Even when she is being insulted by Gazoithot, she still remains calm. This is where the Mary Sue term comes to play. Right, before I talk about that, if you made it this far, then I assume you really like this video. If you do, please consider subscribing to this channel because 80% to 90% of people watching my videos are not subscribed. I make this video possible all by myself, from script writing, video recording, voice recording, video editing, drawing my chibi avatars, and even creating the thumbnail. So if you hit that subscribe and like button, you'll be helping this channel a lot, and that keeps me going on making and improving qualities of my videos. With that said, let's continue with the definition of Mary Sue. Mary Sue is an often female character portrayed with little to no weakness and is shown to be unrealistically perfect with little to no weakness or flaws. The term Mary Sue comes from a parody short story in 1973 by the name of The Trekie's Tale, where a character literally named Mary Sue was written to satirize the type of idealized female characters that were widespread in Star Trek fanfiction at the time. They were often depicted as beautiful young women, possessing special abilities or physical traits, universally beloved by the more established characters, and playing a central role in the story despite not appearing in the source material. It used to be a term for a self-insert character in a fanfiction or adolescent authors, but gradually the definition changes into something derogatory. The male equivalent is Gary Stu or Marty Stu, which is essentially the same thing, but people are more familiar with Mary Sue as the universal term for this trope. Some people argue that Mavuika is a Mary Sue or not, and in my personal opinion, she is a Mary Sue. I'm sorry, but to me personally, she is in the middle, but I would say she is a lot closer to Mary Sue than any other characters we know in this game so far. Now here's the thing, while Mary Sues are portrayed as someone free of weakness and flaws, some Mary Sues do have flaws. It's just that their flaws felt so insignificant that it's outshined by their other personalities. I used to think that Mavuika is not a Mary Sue, but when I wrote this script again and evaluated with more knowledge that I learned from art school, I came to realize that she does feel too much of a Mary Sue. There are some arguments for it, so let's take a look at them one by one. Her first flaw is her recklessness, which, yeah, she is a reckless person and is inherited from her mother. She lunges forward at everything she sees without any hesitation and believes that everything will go as planned. Her plan with the 6 heroes is a reckless plan because it's based on gamble, which contributes to her flaw. Even the chiefs from 500 years ago pointed out the glaring issues of this plan. Yes, recklessness is a flaw because it more than likely leads to a negative outcome. But the way the story portrays her is terrible because the plan worked regardless. Yes, you can argue that Natlan lost a lot of people during the 4th act of Archon Quest because of this plan, but the thing is, Natlan has always been at war even before this plan came to be, so the consequences are not that impactful to Mavuika or everyone else. This could have been more impactful and seen as an actual flaw if Mavuika actually grieved with her people and had anxieties because she came to a realization that her plan didn't work out as she wants it to be. She doesn't have to be panicking, they could just give her a realization like, oh, I f***ed up kind of feeling, because making her panic or cry will ruin her entire character as a strong individual. Secondly is how stubborn she is, and it is true. This is connected to the first point. We see her being stubborn when having arguments with Yohual, Justin, and Capitano. When Capitano pointed out the glaring issues of her plan, she had her argument ready. Generally, stubbornness is a character flaw because it also leads to negative outcomes because this leaves no room for more possibilities and flexibilities. This could have been a good character flaw if only they don't put too much plot armor into Mavuika. Like I said, her plan worked regardless. She won against Xabalanque. She easily proved Capitano wrong by having Auroran's ancient name awaken right in front of their eyes. Her supposed death is also covered by another plot armor by having Capitano sacrifice himself instead. Everything worked the way she wanted and planned, and even if it didn't, she's always saved by plot armor, so her recklessness and stubbornness doesn't really give any meaningful drawback. Lastly, she is self-sacrificing, which I honestly can't even consider this as a meaningful character flaw because a lot of Mary Sues in the mainstream media are self-sacrificing, like Bella Swan, who sacrificed her life so her daughter could be born despite declaring issues, but it worked out for her anyway because she is revived as a vampire. The reason self-sacrifice exists as a character trait is to show their selflessness and the realization of their journey. For example, Tony Stark is a self-sacrificing character the moment he finds the true meaning of his life, so his sacrifice to save the world from Thanos becomes a meaningful and one of the most memorable moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Asuna from the Sword Art Online sacrificed herself from Akihiko Kayaba's attack when he's about to end Kirito's life. While yes, Kirito still lost to him, her sacrifice gives meaning for Kirito to defeat Akihiko despite the verge of dying because Asuna loves Kirito. So you see, self-sacrificing is not really considered a character flaw, and it will only become a character flaw if it becomes their trait and have meaningful drawbacks like you're thinking of others too much to the point you neglect yourself. The thing is, this is not the case with Mavuika because her self-sacrifice ends up becoming her strength. Natlan's main motto and mantra is that no one fights alone, yet she is a hypocrite that she is willing to fight alone to defeat the Abyss. This would have been amazing if they portrayed the despair she is feeling when fighting alone and have her friends or Natlan is to help her at the end, but no, everything just works out according to her plan. Yes, we fought Gasoithot with the Traveler, but the moment Gasoithot insults Mavuika, this is the time she is fighting alone, yet she remains unfettered. Now, people may argue that Mavuika's perfect character makes sense because she has years of experience of war, which, yeah, she does, but like, so are the other gods. The reason Archons exist is because they won in the Archon Wars, so you can imagine that the original 7 has way more war experience than Mavuika. Like Fenty and Zhongli are the only surviving Archons right now. They live longer than Mavuika, and it makes sense for the two of them being larger than life because they have thousands of years of experience living in Teyvat. It's also easy to refute this argument because does she really have that many years of experience compared to other Archons? At best, she has around 20 to 30 years worth of experience, which is a lot of years per se, but with the Genshin's context and compared to the other Archons with hundreds and thousands of years, that's just kind of small. Remember, in Natlan, the Archons are humans and they still age like normal human lifespan. Some may argue that she has 500 years of experience, but does she? Her 500 years of experience is her throwing her life in the sacred fire, where in the animated short, she is endlessly trying to reach the sunset as in a metaphor of her journey for 500 years in the sacred flame. Some people might argue again that each time the next Pyro Archon is appointed, the experience of the previous Archons will be inherited to them, and yes, well, that's a reasonable trait, and I do think it's a good trait, but having her protected by so many plot armors makes you don't really take her flaws that seriously, and not only that, it further contributes to her being a Mary Sue because she becomes perfect the moment she becomes the Archon. Some arguments that I see when doing this research is how people constantly compare Mavuika with the other Archons. And now let's start with Zhongli. But the thing is, it makes sense with Zhongli because he lived for 6,000 years. He went through all of his development, so it makes sense for Zhongli to be this idea of enigma. He is wise, he is a very strong character, and that's justified because of his years of experience. He went through grief by losing his friend Guizhong and was unable to save her. He went through loss after loss during the Archon War, which makes his personality now justified. Besides, in the Archon quest, we don't really see him as often as the other Archons in their Archon quests. Heck, I would even call him as the least involved Archon in every Archon quest so far. Even then, he still has meaningful character flaws, like he is still trying to live alongside humans but often struggles where he constantly lives at the expense of others because he is broke. He can no longer mend Mora because he no longer has the Gnosis. I also see a lot of people compare Mavuika with Furina, so let's discuss that. Mavuika felt more godlike than the others, to the point Furina feels more like an actual human because she is a human, don't get me wrong, but she plays the role of the Archon, so the point still stands. If we take a look at what and why Furina is such a likable character, it's because Furina develops what it feels like to be a human. She is obnoxious, she is not perfect, she cries, she feels joy, and all of that stripped from her because she is forced to play the Archon to save her people. People hated Furina from the first to the fourth act of Fontaine's Archon quest, but when we were told that Furina has been trying to defend her people for so long and she had to lie so people of Fontaine can be saved, that's why her character felt so impactful and make you feel very complicated things towards her. Like, we thought Furina is the worst Archon because she did not do her job, but ended up actually one of the best because of her self-sacrifice. That's the thing, remember when we talk about self-sacrificing? Furina executed this flaw very well. She sacrificed herself too much to the point it takes a toll on her mental state. She develops depression and identity crisis. But after the events of the Archon quest, after Fossilor executed herself to return Nivellette's power, her suffering was paid off. She saved her people, her story quest happened, we see her development, and she is now living happily as an ordinary human. Now this one is less compared, but this one is also a thing that I want to point out. But to me, Mavuika has a lot of things in common with A, where both are canonically the strongest Archons in the present day. We are even hinted of potential Archon interactions in the future. A is able to fight the monstrosity of her puppet for 500 years in Makoto's realm of consciousness and become the shadow of Makoto in war. So is Mavuika, who constantly fights the abyss for her people. Not only that, both experience grief as A lost her friends and Makoto, while Mavuika lost her people, her friends that were the old 6 heroes, and she had to leave her family. But what makes A more interesting despite her glaring issues is that her grief hurts her people and has glaring consequences. She shuts herself so Inazuma can be in constant eternity, where she is protecting Inazuma from becoming Kainria 2.0. But her plan ended up hurting her people, and she herself didn't even bother to come out of the plane of euthymia to see the suffering of her people. Her second story quest to me is a good way to disclose her arc, as she finally realizes that her idea of eternity no longer stands. She changed her ideology, but that came at a price where she has to fight her own puppet to prove where she stands. The moment she won against herself, not only she is able to beat Makoto's consciousness once again, but also Inazuma's borders are open once again and the Sakoku decree was abolished. But we don't really see that in Mavuika. Everything just worked out for her, so you don't really feel anything for her. I don't want to repeat what I said again, but you do get the point. Both A and Mavuika are similar in a way, so is Furina and so is Zhongli. But what makes A more likable is because we see her growth as this most unlikable character in the game to one of the most developed Archon. I won't say the most likable one because there are a lot of people that still don't like her, but she is one of the most developed ones. We see her from this shut in to finally understand her people. You can see the pattern here from all of those examples, yeah? There's a cause, there's a conflict, there's consequences, and there's a conclusion. While as Mavuika, the cause is there, the conflict is there, but there's barely any consequences because everything worked out on her, so the conclusion is not that satisfying. Finally, why is Mavuika designed this way? Now, the most obvious answer is of course to sell the character. In an age where anime games are a huge hit, there's a reason why there's a lot of female characters who are portrayed as strong characters in this game, because the main target audience are the male players. So having a strong and badass character with a broken skill set will raise the sales, and we see the proof of this in the January 2025 revenue, where Genshin Impact sits at #1 spot of the chart. However, let's not discuss the obvious one first, because if that's not the case, then what is it? Personally, I think they tried to portray Mavuika as a strong character and a perfect leader with being a big sister coded. Natlan is in war against the Abyss after all, so giving the people a leader that could never falter and calm in the face of threat makes sense. So her people can stay calm because if their leader is panicking, then so is her people. Capitano said it himself, Mavuika is a great leader, so her role in the Archon quest to be this strong makes sense. However, they ended up going too far to the point she barely feels like a human turned Archon. They gave her way too many character strengths to the point her flaws are overshadowed. We don't see a lot of development in her character, and everything happened without any glaring consequences. But because of her very little to non-existent flaws, this just makes her quite a messy character to begin with. So, what can we do to make her better? Personally, I don't really like giving a lot of changes towards a character because once you change a single trait in your project, everything else will be affected, and so that will remain the same here. I only have one solution, and it's actually an easy one. Give her consequences. She doesn't have to have a mental breakdown moment like with Nahida and Farina, but make her choices actually have consequences instead of making everything work in her favor. She could have a Mizuki story quest moment when she was questioned by Kuroyume. Mizuki cannot answer his question because she herself is in doubt whether humans will choose her or not. Same with Mavuika. She could have a moment where she contemplates about her choices during the time Kazoito tries to make Mavuika adopt herself. Not only it'll make us have more connection with Mavuika, but also make the power of friendship trope stronger, because this could be the time where the traveler can help her in persuading her to stay true to her ideals when Gazoithot insults her. Just a simple fix can change a lot of things that shows her flaws better, and not only that, proves Mavuika that not everything can work in her favor, because that would happen in reality. With consequences, this will show her stubbornness better, this will show her recklessness as well that can seriously hurt her, and her self-sacrifices can be more impactful because she learns from her mistakes. Like, the main consequences of Mavuika's plan is that a lot of people lost their lives because of her. But the thing is, Natlan has always been in constant wars, so sacrifices will bound to happen anyway, so it's like a consequences that will happen regardless if she has plans or not. If we go to something extreme, we could perhaps have one of the 6 heroes in the present die. In this case, perhaps Chaska and Ororon would die in the Archon quest, and this would lead Mavuika to have dire consequences that can show her flaws a lot better. She will become less stubborn to the point she will consider other options, or she will be even more reckless to the point she will barge into the war and could have seriously hurt herself, and her self-sacrifice have a lot more meaning if she only has 5 heroes that are awakened, and maybe making her have to use Renova's power by sacrificing her life immediately after using such power. See, just a small change, it can change the story even more. Personally, the only way for them to actually fix Mavuika is by giving her a second story quest, same like A, where they fix her issues from the events and her second story quest. However, with how she's portrayed, I doubt it'll be a significant change anyway, because she feels like a completely developed character already, and there's little to no room for a change. But hey, who knows? I know I will be proven wrong anyway, and all we can do now is wait and see how it goes. Before I end this video, I just want to say, if you watch all that and are heartbroken that you felt like I trash talk your favorite waifu, please, even I find Alhaitham has glaring issues, but I still like him anyway, because he fits my type perfectly as the perfect husbando, and he is hot. However, he single-handedly is one of the most disliked characters because of how annoying he can be. But that's the thing, and that's fine. It's what makes people remember a character, and it's what makes people able to get attached to certain things, whether they feel relatable or resonate with them. Another of my favorite characters not from Genshin is Lam from Honor of Kings. Yes, I have a type, shut up! Where he is portrayed as actually a very kind boy who used his powers to help others, but people around him only see him as a monster instead, so he shut his heart and become a heartless assassin adopted by a tyrant. The moment he met a little girl who can open his heart and be his light, this is his character development where his beliefs shattered. There are people that are willing to accept him, and he became someone who only gets his hands dirty to the people he holds dear. Character development is an important thing, and this is more evident to the main characters. If you really like Mavuika, that's fine. I also like her, but just because I am being critical doesn't mean I don't like the character I'm talking about. I'm here to talk as someone with design experience. If you don't agree with me, that's fine, because designers also have disagreements towards each other. You're entitled to have opinions just as I am allowed to have mine, but even so, just don't be a dick about it.